live back with a Thursday edition of Your Wildest Fantasy Football Show. Thursday night football tonight between two rough and rowdy opponents ready to hit each other, smack each other in the mouth, do whatever it takes to win. The Baltimore Ravens and then the mighty Miami Dolphins. There's a lot of things going on today. It's 11:11. Have you made a wish yet today, Cody?
I always make a wish.
Okay. Are you going to share your wish?
No, that doesn't come true.
That's very true. I was just testing you to see if you would, and you passed that test. It is also Veterans Day, so we want to just say thank you to all the vets out there or people currently serving. I know that this is a very close issue to you, Cody. We appreciate your service. If you know anybody who has served, make sure to thank them today for everything that they have sacrificed for our freedom.
Amen. Thank you, veterans.
And hopefully they can celebrate, we all can celebrate tonight with a good Thursday night football game. I don't know about good. Good might be asking for a little bit too much, but we do get football, and that's enough in comparison to other days.
Right.
Baltimore Ravens and Miami Dolphins. Baltimore, obviously heavy favorites here. Miami has had their struggles throughout the season. Fantasy-wise, as always, we're going to try to talk about less of like the obvious people. Obviously, you're starting a Mark Andrews, a Hollywood Brown, a Lamar Jackson. But as for the less obvious, and maybe this is the most obvious of the less obvious, is Myles Gaskin. We have talked about the trend with him every other week, and he had a good week last week. This would be the down week that we expect. But the Baltimore defense is just about as confusing as Myles Gaskin. So they are third lowest in opponent rushing play percentage. I looked this up because I saw they are top 5 in rushing yards allowed, but they're not actually doing all that great against opposing running backs in fantasy. They're allowing the 9th most points to opposing fantasy running backs. So they are not having teams run the ball on them a lot, whether that be just because their offense has been pretty explosive this year or whatever. Teams are not running the ball on them much. They're right behind New Orleans and Tampa Bay at 35% of rushing plays against them. And it's weird because unlike New Orleans and Tampa Bay, who are pretty dominant yardage-wise,
right,
the Ravens are allowing 4.2 yards per carry. So efficiency-wise, if like Gaskin got looks off the numbers, it suggests that he could be productive, especially because they're allowing, like I said, within the top 10 in fantasy points allowed to opposing running backs. But people just don't tend to hand the ball off against Baltimore. And I suppose for a team like this, a Miami team that has struggled on defense, we wouldn't expect them to hand the ball off much. It's a confusing situation. Just adds to the confusion with Gaskin that we already have.
Does indeed.
I'm trying to stay away from it, but like, who are you really starting over Gaskin also? What are your thoughts on Myles Gaskin this week?
I said it's going to be a great Gaskin day.
Of course you do.
Well, I mean, looking back at who Baltimore's played, I think they've really only stopped one good running back, and that being Jonathan Taylor. I mean, Minnesota put up 31 on him. Cincinnati put up 41 on him. Sorry, not Jonathan Taylor. Austin Eckler, because the Chargers only put up 6 on him. JT and the Indianapolis Colts put up 25 on him. And then looking through at the Raiders, Kansas City, Detroit, and Denver, they're not exactly teams that scream out strong running back here. Like, I mean, yes, DeAndre Swift is having a good year, but I don't think that's, that's just kind of because it's the Lions. So, like, who else but DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams, and Hawkinson? I think he has a chance to have a good game tonight, obviously. only game on, so will get all my attention. Yeah, I have faith in him to reach the end zone. Baltimore's allowing 91 yards on the ground every game. I think, like you said, letting up about 4 yards a carry, teams just aren't running it on them because the Baltimore offense is so explosive. I like it. I like if you have a Myles Gaskin share, I think today is the day to let him like do his thing. I don't know. I'm confident going into the game.
I do want to say that 91 yards on the ground is not like a ton.
It's not a lot, but
because that is, I mean, in perspective here, Tampa Bay and New Orleans are around 75. So like not that far off of that. And then like the Chargers, who are in last, are like in the 160s. So it is good to not allow or to allow under 100 yards per game.
I mean, Texans are the second worst with 136, so to only allow less than 40 more yards a game on the ground than the 31st team. I mean, it just depends on how you want to try to twist stats into your favor, out of your favor for anything.
Well, I mean, okay.
No, I just mean for anything. I'm not saying you're doing it. I'm just saying like however you want to twist it. I mean,
Baltimore, they're top five in yards allowed is the point.
Right. I mean, and for fantasy points, they're 24th to the running back. So
exactly. And that's what I was kind of saying about how confusing it is. And I think that goes to your point of you could make an argument for Myles Gaskin, or you can make an argument against him because of how weird the numbers are on the Baltimore side of the ball and how weird the numbers are for him. And that like uncertainty or ability to make like an unclear argument makes me a little bit scared of him. Obviously, I've been pretty scared off of that in general. But then again, like you're not starting a Mike Davis over him. You're not starting you're not getting cute here. And starting somebody crazy, like, I mean, you're probably not even starting Antonio Gibson over him.
I wouldn't. I think starting Myles Gaskin against the Baltimore defense, who on paper looks like they're stopping the run, but then when you look at it closer, it's his teams aren't running against them, so it looks like they're stopping it. I'm going to take my chances with him. In my leagues, I have shares of Myles Gaskin. I'm going to do it confidently. Unless you have two stud running backs, I don't think you can make the argument. Like if you have a Dalvin Cook and you made a trade for Jonathan Taylor too, I don't think that's like one of the only options. I think you're not starting Myles Gaskin as one of your RB2s.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not feeling great about it. He's definitely going to be more in the low end of RB2s, but RB2 is RB2. So don't get too cute with your decision. I don't even know what that's coming from. Okay. We're refocused. No more sounds. I deleted out all my tabs. I don't have any information, but no more sounds. So that's something we don't have to worry about, at least.
That's good news. Good news.
As for the Baltimore side of the ball, I think there's an opportunity for everyone to eat in this offense. The two guys that wanted to key in on here, we actually have a question about one of them. Rashad Bateman has 6 targets in the last 3 weeks. Devonte Freeman also has 11 plus points in the last 3 weeks. Right. Can you start either of these guys in a pinch if you have like bye week injury, some kind of issue there?
I said Freeman would be the running back I'd be starting if I had to make a pick out of all the Baltimore running backs. He'd be the guy that I would be most confident backing. Again, I'm not starting a Baltimore back over a lot of other guys. Very few, probably. But I think your best bet is to go with Freeman.
Go what?
Go Freeman.
Okay. So I would definitely say don't feel bad starting Devonte Freeman. Be my number one thing. Second off, my computer wants to work. I would definitely slow down on Bateman a little bit. Sammy Watkins is practicing for the first time as practice in full and is expected to play this week. for the first time in a long time. We haven't seen Rashad Bateman with Sammy Watkins. So, like, I don't know how that is going to play into the Rashad Bateman role that we've seen over the last few weeks. So I'm not feeling that confident there. And yeah, I mean, I feel fine. I want to get some names here compared to Devonte Freeman. You're starting Myles Gaskin over Devonte Freeman, obviously.
In a heartbeat.
I think it's closer than I think it is close, but I would go Gaskin just because of I think he has a little bit more pass game volume and just like to himself in the backfield. There's always a chance that they give it to Le'Veon Bell for some reason at the goal line or something like that. Melvin Gordon or either of these guys.
Gaskin over Gordon.
Denver plays Philadelphia. I'm playing Melvin Gordon over both.
Oh, wow. Interesting. You are just insanely high on to your Bronco.
I don't think I'm high on any of these guys. Although, if I was to be high on somebody, I guess the guy in Denver would add up, just legalization-wise. So, question about this game I will bring into the fold. Should I start Waddle or Bateman? I think it's Waddle, no question about it.
Yeah, go with Waddle.
Yeah, and also with Devontae Parker on IR, kind of makes that decision a lot easier as well. We see him getting a ton of targets, full point PPR, just like beast in that kind of regard. As a wide receiver too, like very high floor for Jalen Waddle. Do you have anything else from this game tonight?
This game, no.
Cool. We will move into the Sunday slate covering the 1:00 games, starting with Buffalo, big favorites at the Jets. I don't know if they should be big favorites with Mike White back in the fold, baby. But we will see how that will affect not necessarily Mike White, because I don't think anybody's starting him in fantasy. Maybe they should. Guess you can make that point if you want to.
Right.
I don't want to. I want to make the point of what should you do with these guys that we've seen kind of grow of late and also really prosper in the Mike White game. So Elijah Moore was a top waiver pickup guy for most. He had 6 for 67 for 10.1 fantasy points with Mike White starting. Obviously, last week had the monster 27-point game. And then Michael Carter had 15 for 77 and a touchdown and 9 for 95 for a monster 30-point game when Mike White started. How do you think Mike White being in the starting lineup affects these guys? And are you starting either of these guys?
It's tough to start a team against Buffalo's defense, which is literally number one across the board except for kicker. It's tough to confidently start these guys this week. Michael Carter, I suspect, is going to have a down week just because Jets might just try to lean into him a little bit. Like Mike White did have just an ungodly game against Cincinnati. And I think I think he has some talent, but I still think the Jets are just going to be maybe we just try to run it at first, ground and pound, weaken up that front line, get people in, and then let Mike White have a little bit more space. And I think in trying to do that, Michael Carter is going to suffer just being stopped over and over near or behind the line. Just rough game for him, I suspect. And I think it's going to trickle into the rest of the team. I'm not super confident about most of these guys.
I think that I'd agree as far as Buffalo's defense is different than either of the two defenses the Jets have faced in the last 2 weeks where they put up 30-plus points. I still if you have Carter, I think you play him because of that passing usage. Obviously, if he can get 7 catches, his rushing numbers aren't going to matter too much, especially in full point PPR formats.
Was he in all week last week against Indy?
So he was the lead back. I can pull up the snap counts if you want me to do that.
Yeah, I'm looking. I was just wondering if
But he was the lead guy. Obviously, Ty Johnson gets some of the work as well. That's just kind of how
Mhm.
that team works. But he's
I
getting
mean,
enough touches to compete with most other guys. He's just on the Jets,
he
which
got
is
he got 58% of the snaps, 45 plays last week against Indy. He went 1 for 2. Yeah, that one catch was for 37 yards. But I mean, most of his games, except for New England and Cincinnati, have been 3 targets or less. So I think the passage usage is vastly exaggerated, or it's really buffed when you get 23 targets in 2 games. And then the rest of your, 7 games combined, you have like 15. Like, I really think like the numbers are a little skewed. I think he's shown that he can catch the ball and he can make things happen.
aren't
But
those numbers skewed though towards those 2, 8, and 9 reception games were 2 of the last 3. So I think that does need to be considered though too.
I
So he's
guess, but I mean, I
definitely
don't.
trending. I guess you could say, yeah, well, he only had 1 in the last one.
Mhm.
But I think the passing game usage and obviously his usage, like in the beginning of the year, he was the 3rd running back. So like his usage is trending
He
in
had
a more
45% of the snaps week 2. It was really just week 1 that he wasn't he got 25%, 45, 43, 51, 52 by week, 72, 70, 58. It looks like he needs the bulk of the work, i.e., over 70% of the snaps played, for him to have these 2 explosive weeks where he got the 16 to 32 and he got the 9 and 14 targets. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying like if Ty Johnson is in there for over 30% of the snaps, then I think like just be prepared for a lower Carter week. And against Buffalo's defense, I think we could see them switching it up and him just not looking as good. That's all I was saying.
interesting. Yeah, I like Carter a
Mhm.
little bit more. I'm like, he's kind of in that Gaskin category for me, where if you're playing him, he's an RB2. He's just not somebody that I'm super pumped about this week. Do you have anything from the Buffalo side? I don't really have much. Like we're
Beasley's
playing
ribs. I said that. Um,
who's?
Cole Beasley. You might have
Okay.
heard of him. Plays wide receiver. He didn't participate Wednesday. Don't know about anything on Thursday, but he was a D not P on Wednesday. Um, the Jets' pass defense is way tougher than their run defense, but Zach Moss, in the concussion protocol, needs 2 more good tests before he can come into play. So I think it could be a Devin
I think that's
Singletary.
COVID.
Zach Moss, he needs to pass it.
You said 2 tests.
Oh, sorry. He needs to clear the whatever it's
Clear the
called.
protocol. Yeah,
Whatever
I
it's
got what
called.
you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's a test. I don't know. They gave you tests when we played football. You're like, hey, sit down in front of this
We may
computer.
need to take 2 tests.
Maybe
I don't know.
Anyway, Zach Moss potential to be out, but listed as questionable for now. Could be a Devin Singletary game just because the Jets will let you run on them more so than they let you pass on them.
Second take extra is trying to defend the Jets here.
Oh, what's he saying?
I don't know.
Oh,
It says
okay.
after they lost Marcus May, the pass defense isn't that good. So I don't know how big of a defense that is.
I don't know either. Hey, I
I
mean,
think you're
Minnesota
gonna have to bring it a little bit
yeah,
more to
I mean,
support your
second
boy.
take extra. My Minnesota defense is trash. I mean, we have some good pieces, but at the end of the day, you just got to admit when your team's not that good. My offense is great. My defense is god awful.
Life gets a lot easier when you admit that your team isn't that good and you don't have
Exactly.
to defend them.
Exactly.
I can very easily admit that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the big thing to watch here is obviously on the Buffalo side, the Zach Moss situation. Huge boost for Devin Singletary
Mhm.
if Zach Moss was to not play in this game. And
Yeah.
I know
would just get the
Singletary
goal
is
line.
available. I don't know in how many leagues, but he's available in one
He's
of
available.
my
He's
12 team
available in
leagues. He's
30.
rostered in 62% of leagues. So he's out there in a good chunk of leagues still. So might be a good speculative pickup because I think he's a very good running back play.
Mhm.
I would put him ahead of ahead of Gaskin, ahead of Michael Carter if he was to play and Zach Moss was to be out.
If Zach Moss was to miss, I would put it Gaskin, Singletary, Carter in that order. I just think
I would put Singletary like pretty easily above both of those guys. But
I mean, you still have Josh Allen, you still have Stephon Diggs, you still have Emmanuel Sanders,
yeah,
Cole Beasley.
but
Like,
you're still playing
have
the
all
Jets who just gave up 42 points too.
Yeah, but I mean, Josh Allen, like, to not be in the goal line situation. Devin Singletary not getting any goal line work almost all year. Very few touches inside the 20s. I think exactly. But so if Zach Moss misses, Josh Allen is used to a different guy in there. He knows how he is. I'm just saying Josh Allen is a man too. Like, he wants to score touchdowns and be the boss. And so I think he might just do a couple snag and goes because Josh Allen's like 6'3", 6'4", and 200 something pounds. Like, he's a big man. And I just don't think I don't think he's gonna score. I just think Devin Singletary is gonna get more touches to add for some more yards. That's all I'm thinking. That's why I'm put Gaskin above him.
Interesting. Yeah, we do not have to agree.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay at Washington. Tampa Bay, big favorites.
Oh, yeah.
Good day for throwing the ball. It feels like a good day for throwing the ball to Mike Evans for Tampa Bay. A lot of injuries on this Tampa Bay, just team in general, both having to do with passing the ball, whether that be on defense, where they have a bunch of corners out, or on offense, where Godwin, they said his status for Sunday is uncertain with a foot injury.
Right.
And same with AB. AB just got out of the walking boot. They said that he's doing light walking, or like, I don't know. It might have been running, but I don't think it was. So I would count on him probably missing this week with that news. It seems like a Mike Evans day.
Yeah. You have Tom Brady, so obviously there's going to be a couple lesser known guys who are going to just eat and get you 10 points somehow, is what it is.
Are you looking at any of those guys for fantasy? Like, I've seen Tyler Johnson's name pop up.
Tyler Johnson is someone who I was looking at to express excessive confidence into him is unrealistic. But I'm just saying, like, watching the game in person, it's going to be funny as long as you're not Mike Evans owner. But it's going to be funny to just watch all these guys get like 3 or 4 targets and eat ups. And you're just going to be like, why is Mike Evans not touching the ball? And then Mike Evans is going to get like 8 receptions in one quarter and one drive. And you're going to be like, there it is. I'm happy. I can calm down again.
Also, with Gronk kind of looking like he has a chance to be back here, I wouldn't be surprised if he got into the mix as well. He is questionable for this game. I want to look at the reports. He was outside, so I guess we will have to see if he plays. But if he does play, definitely a guy that I wouldn't mind throwing out there as well. On the Washington side of the ball, we already mentioned Antonio Gibson. You're trying to avoid putting him in your lineup with obviously the production that we've seen against okay teams and him just not being able to do much. Tampa Bay poses a different challenge to that. I think we would you – I mean, we kind of already talked about how would you put him into that conversation with Singletary and Carter and Gaskin and Devonte?
We're talking about Fournette, correct?
No, we're talking about Antonio Gibson.
Oh, Gibson? I'm not as confident in Gibson. Been actively trying to move him for a couple weeks in most of my leagues. I mean, he's questionable just with the shin again. He was limited Wednesday. I don't love him coming into the game. Tampa Bay is just good at stopping the run. I just think you got better options out there. Some of the people we talked about, you could probably either make a trade for right now or just pick up off the sideline.
Interesting. So,
are you starting Gibson right now?
I would against Tampa Bay, it's really hard to say him over Freeman, which is wild. But I think that's where the conversation starts. Like, I don't know if I would say him over Gaskin at this point, which is bad. That's like, it's crazy to think of the fall for Antonio Gibson. And it's sad. And hopefully after this bye week, he can prove us wrong. And I do think I unfortunately think this is going to be a rough week for him. Just Tampa Bay defense, which has fallen off against the run a little bit in recent weeks, but like, I mean, they were giving up 50 yards before that. So
yeah, it was like 40 and 50 yards.
It's not like a massive fall off. But yeah, I think this could be a good buy low time to the point next week where his value is going to be so low that like you might as well take a shot on him.
And also, I mean, J.D. McKissick is literally 3 spots behind him as his backup. Like, you don't mind it when Kareem Hunt is 3 spots ahead of Nick Chubb, but Nick Chubb's still RB8 on the year. Like, you don't mind that sort of competition. But when you have a guy like J.D. McKissick who is right there in terms of scoring with Gibson, and I think has outscored Gibson a couple weeks now when they've both been playing. He's just a guy who I can't confidently back week in and week out. And against Tampa Bay's run defense, he's someone I'm looking to stay away from this week.
Mm-hmm. Logan Thomas, I don't think he's going to play. He's been they've been slow to get him back. He might play. I, as a Terry McLaurin guy, would hope that he plays, opens up the field more for opportunities for him. But this feels like Terry in a really primetime matchup. If you are going to feel confident about him, and we know that he has been a roller coaster this year.
Yep.
And we've kind of said, like, if you have him, that's just what you have to live with. You have to be willing to sacrifice the 8-point games to get the benefit of the 20-point games.
Exactly.
So this feels like a game that hopefully could be one of those 20-point games, and you're definitely rolling him out there if you have him, right?
Right. Scary Terry's a must start this week. It's Tampa Bay.
Exactly. I think that's all that really needs to be said. Moving into Atlanta at Dallas. Dallas looking to rebound after a weird game. And they're playing an Atlanta team that somehow has won 4 of their last 5. This has all happened since I called them the worst team in football.
You did.
Obviously
why
didn't
you
mean
said
that. I was just trying to
said
motivate them.
Yeah.
That's all it is. I just wanted to get the best out of them. And sometimes you know how certain people are going to react. I think as the motivator that I am and the leader that I am,
right?
You know the tactics that are going to bring the best out of people. And because of my relationship with Matty Ice, obviously Cordero Patterson, even the guys on the defensive side of the ball, Deontay Jones, special teams, Younghoe Koo, I know those guys and how they react to certain things. So I knew saying this team is the worst team in football and it might not even be close is exactly what they needed to strap them up, rally, and get themselves back together. So I'm really proud of them. But I also want to keep saying they might be the worst team in football just to see if they can really push this thing forward and win that division. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. I don't want to lighten up on them now that they're having a little bit of success, let them get full of themselves. I still want to keep that pressure on. Anyway, that has nothing to do with fantasy football. So let's get into what we're here to talk about. We talked about Mike Davis earlier this week.
We did indeed.
Going back to last game, would you rather play Mike Davis or one of the Washington running backs?
That is closer than I thought it was going to be a while ago. I think I'm going to go with Antonio Gibson over Mike Davis.
I think I'm going to go
I don't. JD
I think I'm going to
McKissick
go
is
both.
close. JD McKissick is close, especially with Antonio Gibson's just shin worries that you have to have just because like it's listed almost weekly for this guy. It's Dallas. They're letting up over 100 yards a game on the ground. They're, there's a chance that he can get some productivity out there. I'm not super confident, but again, just a little bit of faith. Like he was getting you double digits 5 weeks in a row, and then after the bye week, it's been every other week. So
Mike Davis or Adrian Peterson? I'm going Mike Davis. Adrian Peterson plays New Orleans. So.
Oh, I like Davis.
Yeah. As for the Dallas side of the ball, I think we can talk about anybody. So is there anyone that you particularly want to discuss?
Yeah, Tony Pollard.
Okay.
Just with Zeke out potentially. He's not out officially, but he's a little banged.
I think you want Zeke to be out, which is very malicious of you. I don't like that.
I don't have any
hurt just to see Tony Pollard, but
I mean, it's not so much that it's a fancy show to talk about who we think's going to perform. Falcons are very soft against a run in terms of fantasy points. I just think anyone can run behind that line. It's been shown. And I think Tony Pollard has a great opportunity to, if Zeke is banged up, he is limited with his knee right now.
But that is a big indication if we read into – actually, we talked about this before the show, so this will make no sense.
Absolutely none to them.
I'll go into it. Cody made the argument that guys who are limited on Wednesday 90% of the time play.
85 to 90.
Not an actual statistic.
I said 85 to 90, but yes.
I don't remember the 85 part, but
I know
that's
you
not an
don't.
actual statistic. So it does seem from that number that Cody just pulled up that Zeke has an 85 to 90% chance to play.
Exactly.
Obviously, if he was not to, Tony Pollard would be a top 10 running back.
Right. And I mean, they're playing the Falcons, so and like no matter who is back there, I think Tony Pollard is an interesting flex this week. Just because if Zeke takes one wrong tackle below the waist, like he could just be out for the game. Like it could just be too sore for him to be as explosive as need be. And if you look at a lot of tackles out in the open field, where do they go? They go low, they grab the leg, and they grab the knee. So, I mean, like if he bounces one outside, it's never malicious. It's just that like that's just what people hang on to is an ankle and a knee and a leg. So all I'm saying is Tony Pollard could be an interesting start this week. It's a 1:00 game, so you gotta jump on it or jump off it. But either way, you gotta live with the decision of Tony Pollard dropping 25 or dropping 6. So
either way, you're jumping.
Right.
So make sure your legs are activated and prepared for that.
Exactly.
As Zeke should probably prepare his legs for this week. Yeah, I agree. Anyone who is the running back there is going to do fairly well, we expect, just based off of what history has shown us with this Falcons defense. So I like the call there. New Orleans at Tennessee. We talked about the running backs a little bit in our comparison with Mike Davis, but from this Tennessee backfield, I'm not sure that we learned much of anything. I think we learned that it's, if anything, that they are still trying to figure out who's going to be their running back going forward and what kind of committee they're going to use. I think they tried to get all of these guys involved, although, I mean, I'm sure that the snap count wasn't 33.
There was 26 plays from Jeremy Nichols. Adrian got 19, and Deontay Foreman got 12. So,
yeah. And Deontay Foreman looked like the best running back out there when that was what they were doing, when they were running downhill. I see them using more of him. I don't see Peterson going away. I don't see McNichols going away. I obviously don't see Foreman going away. I think this is going to be pretty split. I was talking with someone who is in the top 3 of our fan power rankings about Adrian Peterson, and he was like, I want to trade Adrian Peterson this week. I need to trade Adrian Peterson this week. And I said, I can get on board with that. I think that is probably a good time to trade Adrian Peterson, just because I don't know if it's ever going to fully be his job. Obviously, we only saw him for 1 game, and it was his first game there. I think Peterson could have some good weeks, but I don't think he's going to live up to the hype of being the return of Adrian Peterson.
Right. You were super high on Adrian Peterson coming
I
back.
said he was the top waiver pick.
I said I like Jeremy a little bit more.
Okay.
Tennessee clearly loves Jeremy way more than Adrian, hence just
I don't think that's true.
hence the monster just share. But no, I don't see either of them going away. And honestly, I think they might just utilize this time to have experimental backs. I mean, when Derrick Henry's in the game, you give it to Derrick Henry and you use him as bait, but you'd never take Derrick Henry out the game. Whereas like right now, they have the opportunity to like kind of trick teams a little bit more of being like do a couple games in a row where they're like Adrian Peterson will catch 0 balls and he will just run, and Jeremy will just catch passes and Foreman will do both. And after a couple games, teams catch on, and then all of a sudden Adrian Peterson gets 10 targets in, week 13. Like, I'm just saying, they could experiment with it. I don't know. They could also just be trying to figure it out back there. It is a new time for them. They lost. I think I'm considering Derrick Henry to be the face of their franchise. I think most people would. But as far as starting each running back each week, I don't think you start all 3.
I don't think you're feeling good about starting any of them.
Like it's
particularly this week.
Yeah, all 3 of these guys could potentially get you double digits points on a week, in a week. But they're playing New Orleans. New Orleans has a tough defense, and also there's 3 of them back there. I just want to see it a couple more weeks, like another week or 2. New Orleans is a tough game to kind of judge it just because it's New Orleans, but I want to wait like a week or 2.
There is a chance on the other side that Alvin Kamara, who did not practice yesterday, could miss some time with a knee injury, in which case you hopefully could add Mark Ingram. Would recommend, if you have Alvin Kamara, adding Mark Ingram right now. He's available in, I'm not even looking at anything, but my guess would be a lot of leagues.
70.
So that's actually less than I expected, but still a lot of leagues would go and try to pick him up as soon as you can, especially, like we said, if you have Kamara. And I think you'd have to start him, but I don't think you'd feel good about it.
Tennessee has a tough run defense. I mean, top 8 in terms of fantasy points allowed to the running back this year. Not loving it. I said it's going to be more a pass-happy game. I think this could be the game that Callaway, Harris, I think both these guys could eat. Trotman has a tougher matchup too, just because they're tough against the tight end. So I'm not super excited about starting Trotman. Not many people I think were, but just to cover every position here. I like Callaway and I like Harris just for the week, considering Tennessee is dead last in terms of fantasy points to the wide receiver.
So when you say you like those guys, like who are you starting them over? And if you don't have people in mind, then I can ask. Like a Russell Gage.
I like Callaway over Russell Gage.
Would you go Ayuk?
San Francisco's playing
the
Monday. They're playing the Monday game. That's tough. It's close just because I think Ayuk's been kind of hot of late. But with Kamara out, I think Callaway's just someone's gonna have to catch balls out there. I think it's gonna be him. I'm gonna
Jarvis
go Callaway.
Landry.
Jarvis has a knee, right? Yeah, Landry's knee was doubtful, so I'm gonna have to go Callaway just out of that.
Julio Jones. Be my last one.
That's tough. I think Julio. I like Julio.
I would take all those guys. I just don't trust the New Orleans receivers, not
Mhm.
as trusting as you are. But that's just my take on it.
Right.
And you happen to be right a lot. So we will see and determine who is correct on that one.
Yeah.
Jacksonville, Indianapolis, Indy, big favorites. Jacksonville
Ooh.
coming off a big win over the Buffalo Bills, in which they played really good defense. And the
Same
Colts,
defense.
I saw this stat today, have 25 points in 6 straight games, which is
Interesting.
a very good number. My big question for them wasn't really focused on this game as much as the long term for Jonathan Taylor and in the second half of the season. So right now, he is the RB2 still behind Derrick Henry, which is nuts. But he is the RB2 by like okay. That was not planned. If you were thinking that that was planned, that he was just going to leave in the middle of the show, that's not normally how this goes. And that was not how it was supposed to go right now either. So I am obviously stalling, trying to wait until he comes back. But the point I was going to make is Jonathan Taylor is currently the RB2 at 186 fantasy points, 20 points ahead of Austin Eckler. So he is a pretty wide length away from the other guys in this running back mix, which brings the question, do you think that, and I'm talking to nobody, so I guess I'm going to have to answer this question, of whether Jonathan Taylor can hold on to be the running back one throughout the season. I think a lot of people want to give it to an Austin Eckler, want to give it to an Alvin Kamara, obviously Dalvin Cook, and they might be the rest of the way, but going off of the whole season, I think Jonathan Taylor is probably like in the mix there. And I don't think a lot of people think that it is going to be him for the long term. Now, they have a couple tough matchups after this week at Buffalo and Tampa Bay. He still has New England. He still has his bye week, which I think is the biggest part of this. But are you trading Jonathan Taylor for an Austin Eckler? I don't know that I would necessarily do that. I think that's like a personal preference thing. Like a Jonathan Taylor, even for like an Alvin Kamara, I think it's a personal preference thing. I think all of these, as I introduce my co-host back, I think all of these questions I was in a panic. I think the crowd can attest to that.
That was rough. That was the whole laptop just said, we're gonna stop working real quick, and I did not know what to do.
It's wild that your laptop would talk to you.
It's a
in
smart
the first
laptop.
place.
Yeah.
But my question I was posing was, can Jonathan Taylor be the number one back in fantasy this year?
He has a chance, right? I mean, especially with Derrick Henry now out for season, CMC have missing like 5 or 6 weeks. Alvin Cook missing some weeks, missing some time. Kamara just performing well, but Zeke performing decent too for a couple weeks. I think he has a real shot to do it. I mean, you can shake your head, but like week 1 and 2, like Zeke was not performing well. Jonathan Taylor has been performing much better the entire time.
I want to look at that.
I got the stat right here. Don't worry. Ezekiel
Before we
Elliott.
go forward. So,
5 points
so
and
Zeke
7
performed bad in weeks 1 and 2, you said.
5 and 17. So
17's bad?
for Zeke, the guy that you're going up, I mean,
You say 17 is bad?
hold on.
That's
Before you get all crazy now, Jonathan Taylor put up 17.6 week 1 and 6.3, and then he put up 20, 30, 28, 18,
Nope,
21,
he did not do
34.
that. He
He
put up.
hasn't done that?
You're leaving out a glaring 8.2.
Oh, the 8.2.
So
Okay,
he had two
Jonathan
single-digit
Taylor is
weeks.
gonna finish
So
high.
as did Zeke.
And Zeke
Zeke didn't even have two single-digit weeks. He has double digits in every week besides week 1. So,
but he has an 11 and a 12 the past 2 weeks, as you're saying. When we talked about a guy like a couple minutes ago, you said, "Oh, but the last couple weeks he's been doing this." When we talked about a guy, so if we're gonna do that,
well, we're trending on his touches. I was trending on a guy's touches. You're saying that
I think Jonathan Taylor finishes number 1 guy. That's all I was gonna try to say. And then you got defensive when I said Zeke isn't,
well, you said you shake your head, all this stuff, yada yada, calling me out for being
because you just said
a
Zeke is
Zeke
gonna
guy.
be. Whatever, you're wrong.
I'm not wrong.
Zeke's gonna finish.
You said he struggled. Oh,
so Zeke's gonna finish
Zeke
number 1.
struggled to start the end or at the start of the year, unlike Jonathan Taylor. I said Jonathan Taylor had 2 single-digit weeks in the first 3 weeks.
But then he bounces right back with 20-point, 30-point leading.
Well, that wasn't your argument.
But Zeke hasn't.
Zeke's been fine.
I
don't
mean,
think Zeke's going to be the number 1 back. I want to make that very clear.
You're defending him like he is.
But we didn't need to talk about Zeke and take this Jonathan Taylor moment. That's supposed to be a good moment. My guy, my Colts guy, possibly being the number 1 back fantasy, and then we have to just slap Zeke down for no reason. It just seems like a hateful moment just to be hateful.
I think I said every single back who was drafted above him. I mean, Saquon. I didn't count Saquon, but Saquon's an obvious one for just being out the entire time. I said Dalvin, CMC, Derrick Henry. I mentioned Kamara. I mentioned everyone. But it's just kind of weird how the only guy that you're caring about is the guy on your team. Seems a little selfish for fantasy purposes when we're doing.
I mean, I've been a big Zeke guy throughout the process.
I'm a big Dalvin guy, and Dalvin's performed kind of junky as of late. So I mean, he's my guy in real life. He's my guy on my team. I love Dalvin Cook. I'm glad he's on our team, but he just hasn't been performing fantasy-wise.
I hear facts that are not facts.
Okay.
And I will say they are not facts. So when I hear Zeke struggled to start the season, Jonathan Taylor didn't, I'm going to call that out. And to me, that's just, putting the truth first. And that's what I tried to do.
I'm just going to look real quick. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I think Jonathan Taylor does have some tougher matchups coming up and has the bye, and I think that's going to make it closer. But you can make a case for Jonathan Taylor versus anybody right now. And I'm not going to call you crazy for saying you don't want to trade Jonathan Taylor for Austin Eckler, for Dalvin, for Kamara, for Najee.
I think it's just weeks 11 and 12 for him that are going to be really tough. It's Buffalo and Tampa Bay, but then he's playing Houston, bye week, New England, Arizona, Las Vegas, Jacksonville. And I really like those matchups during peak playoff season.
You're not as worried about New England?
New England's run defense so far has – where are they ranked right now? They're middle of the road right now. So, they're kind of scary. They're letting up over 100 yards a game. But Jonathan Taylor is a good running back. Potential number 1 this year, unexpected. And, I mean, injuries played a big part of it. I mean, if Derrick Henry was healthy, not even a conversation. If Dalvin Cook was healthy the whole year, I like to consider him to be pretty good. Same with CMC. If Zeke had it back to himself back there, then him, Kamara. And, yeah, there's other guys, but, just the nature of how the season has gone so far, I think Saquon would have put, money into the race too. But, yeah.
Do you think there's anyone that you would say you need to trade Jonathan Taylor for? If you could trade Jonathan Taylor for any running back.
Any running back? No. I think Jonathan Taylor is going to perform above every running back. I think if you pieced it together with a nice RB1 and a wide receiver 1, then absolutely, because who doesn't want 2 guys who are going to finish at number 1 or number 12 or better in their positions?
Fair. Jacksonville. A very personal thing to me. I think trust is one of the most important things that you can have. And trust is earned, obviously. Not just put together in fantasy rankings, and the guys that you have high have your trust, and the guys that you put low, don't have your trust. It's earned at the end of the day. I think that's why we can scream at each other all the time and not take it personal because we've earned each other's trust.
Exactly.
There was a receiver that earned my trust, and that was Marvin Jones. Early on the season, preseason, you saw Trevor Lawrence getting him the ball. DJ Chark goes down. We expect big things for Marvin Jones on the outside. Laviska Shenault season, everybody's saying.
Mm-hmm.
Even Jamal Agnew on waivers. And these guys were guys that maybe I thought I could trust. And all I've gotten back for that trust is just disappointment and discouragement. And I feel lied to. I feel used. And it's not a good feeling. It's not something that I'm happy with.
No.
These Jacksonville wide receivers are outside of the circle of trust. It's Dan, and that's it.
Yeah. Marvin Jones, Agnew, and Shenault. They all have at least 3 weeks this year with double-digit fantasy points. Marvin Jones has 4, but it's they're definitely outside the trust circle right now. It's tough. Dan the Man, Robinson are the only 2 guys who I feel confident starting week in and week out from this team. Forget their quarterback, forget their wide receivers, their kicker potentially, but again, not really. And rarely their defense has to be a magical matchup. But yeah, I'm with you. Just running back and tight end for me.
Agree. Going to Detroit at Pittsburgh. Something that stood out for me, not necessarily for this game, I suppose this game as well, is Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson hasn't been, I think, what we both expected him to be this year. We had very high expectations for him. Mm-hmm. The reports coming out about Chase Claypool not expected to be a season-ending injury. Mm-hmm. That's encouraging, but it's also, I guess, not that encouraging because we know that it seems like it's going to be a multi-week thing if they have to come out and say that. I think Deontay Johnson could be a interesting buy low candidate right now. How low? Well, he's still wide receiver 25 on the year.
Right.
But I think there may be some guys higher than that or some guys that are lower on him because of, he's only really had 1 or 2 big weeks that I think you might be able to get him for a little bit less than his actual value.
Yeah, he has double digits every week that he's played. Encouraging. Some of them are a little close just because, Denver, he went 2 for 2, 72 yards and a touchdown. So barely getting it without the touchdown. Or he needs a touchdown to get it, sorry. But yeah, I'm with you. It's tough. I think Najee Harris and Johnson and maybe Pat Freiermuth are the only guys who I really want to roster. And if you can buy low on Deontay Johnson, go for it. I think that's a smart move. With the Claypool news, kind of had a suspicion based off watching the game. And it was right. It saved me in a couple of trades where someone tried to steal the best backup running back in the league for a guy who's going to be missing the entire season. So that's pretty good. Just going to pat myself on the back for that one. But I think Deontay Johnson is in for better games. Big Ben has a plethora of injuries of his shoulder, his pectoral. I think he had a groin injury earlier on too. It was just tough seeing him just be banged up in his old age. He's getting older. It is what is happens. Everyone's gonna face it. But I think Deontay Johnson is still poised to have a good season. And I think he's going to finish as our wide receiver 1, if not like an RB 14 or higher, or running back wide receiver 14 or higher. Wow.
Yeah, I think he makes his way into that top, I would say at least 18 for sure, probably sooner than later, especially with this news of Claypool. Like, who else are you going to throw to?
Exactly.
I like Deontay Johnson this week and going forward. Also from the Pittsburgh side, Pat Freiermuth, as you mentioned, interesting play here against the Lions, where you would hope, again, no Claypool. That kind of makes him a little bit more of a consistent weapon. And the Lions, like, you should be able to score points in this game if you're going to score points in general. On the Lions side, I didn't really even have much. Obviously, Swift, TJ Hawkinson, and I don't think you're playing anybody else.
No, not against you don't start Williams this week if you have Williams. He's a little banged up anyway, but Pittsburgh just has an insanely tough run defense as far as fantasy points allowed to the running back this year. They're second. So it looks like it's going to be a down game for Swift. I said it's going to be a great Hawkinson game. I just think, they have no wide receivers, and they're going to be stopped on the ground is my guess. So Hawkinson owners are going to be ecstatic this week.
It's interesting because never mind. There's nothing that's interesting.
Yeah.
I was going to say this team is kind of middle of the road as far as yardage goes, like we mentioned with New England. But fantasy points wise, they are amongst the top in fantasy points allowed as far as on the not side. They're not allowing any fantasy points. So top 3 in the least fantasy points. Does that make sense?
They're really good at stopping the running back is all you had to say. That's all you really had. Yeah, and fantasy
now,
really good
it does help that they've only allowed 2 touchdowns to opposing fantasy running backs, which is tied with Arizona for the least. So that touchdown regression may come back to bite them just because, as we mentioned, they're middle of the pack in yardage wise. So I could still see Swift having a good game here.
They've played better running backs though than Swift. Like, not to take away from Swift's potential, but I mean, they played Cincinnati that has Joe Mixon. They played Green Bay that has Aaron Jones. They played Cleveland that has Nick Chubb and Dearness Johnson, I believe, that week. They played Chicago. I just think they stopped some good running backs. And I mean, they stopped Buffalo I think they stopped Devin Singletary and Zach Moss week 1, I believe. I don't remember. But I mean, they've played some good running backs. I just think that DeAndre Swift is not – I don't think he's the outlier. I don't think he's going to be the guy to, break the system, especially for Detroit, who has so few weapons right now that you can just hone in on him,
I guess what I'm arguing is that the production as far as yardage wise, which I think might be a better predictor than touchdown production, is more in favor of Swift than the fantasy wise, which takes into account the touchdowns. And obviously we all know how much touchdowns can influence fantasy numbers. So Pittsburgh is literally right in the middle against the run. They're 15th in the NFL in rushing yards per game. They've only allowed 2 touchdowns this year, 2 running backs, which is the least.
Would you consider Philly's run defense or Pittsburgh's run defense more terrifying?
I would probably say Pittsburgh just because Philly is 20th.
So Philly, DeAndre Swift went 12 for 27 on the ground against Philly. So that's all. I mean, he went 5 for 5 through the air for 24 yards against Philly. But as far as the run defense goes, I think Pittsburgh has a good chance to stop him from having a monster game. He's not going to drop a 20 bomb like he did week 1, 5 and 7. I think he has a good chance to get – I think he has as good of a chance to get under 15 as any guy this week.
Under 15. Bold claim.
I'm not saying he's not my bold predictions. I'm just saying the 9th running back on the year.
I think if you look at it comparatively,
Mhm.
and not just take into account a one game thing, let's look at it like the
Mhm.
Rams statistically, if you're going by yards per game,
Mhm.
have a better rush defense than the Eagles,
Mhm.
who put up 28 in that game.
He did most of that through the air, though. So we're not. If you're looking on the ground, he got stopped. I'd like to say Minnesota. He ran all over Minnesota. Green Bay, he kind of ran over Green Bay. And San Francisco, he ran over San Francisco. Baltimore, 14 for 47. I'll let you pick for that one. Chicago, 8 for 16. Cincinnati, 13 for 24. So it's through the air that he is getting most of his productivity this year, with 11, 5, 7, 6, 6, 7, 10, 5 in terms of targets. So he would need to get out into the swing area or a couple screens to see like monster productivity is all I'm saying. And I think with the fact that it's really just Hawkinson and him, especially if Williams misses the game, that the defenses are just going to be able to just hone in on him and be like, hey, we're just going to have a guy on man no matter what like zone we're running. We're just going to have a guy man on him and it could slow him down. That's all I'm
We'll
saying.
see. I
Yeah.
mean, I like Swift obviously
Mhm.
a lot more.
I like Swift too. I'm just saying like this is going to be a tough game for him. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
I'm not
I
saying
mean, there are some backs that you compared him to that I think he is better than. I think he is on par with Joe Mixon for sure, in my opinion. But talent wise, obviously not fantasy wise this year. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be too bad of a game for Joe Mixon at
okay.
all. I'm expecting normal numbers
I
for
don't know.
him
We're talking about Joe Mixon now. So
personally. Well, you said that they played better running backs, and I don't know that it was. And you mentioned Joe Mixon, and I don't think Joe Mixon's that much better. So,
so Joe Mixon's on a team,
in fantasy wise, I think he's
right?
better.
Right,
Yeah,
but Joe Mixon's on a team that has other weapons, which defenses have to focus around. And I'm saying, like, DeAndre Swift is not. There's Hawkinson, and who else are you actually like going to make an argument for
I get
that
that.
start?
But that
And so
I
that's
mean,
what I'm saying.
he's been able to produce regardless, which I think
Yeah,
is
through the air. He's a really good receiving back. That's what I'm saying. But I'm saying if they're able to stop him from catching 6 balls this game, then it's going to be a rough fantasy day for him. That's all I'm saying. And you're like taking it to heart, like I'm attacking your guy.
I'm not taking it to heart.
Oh, it's
Uh,
over. Oh, he's
I'm
crying.
making an argument for the other side, which I think is what this show is about.
I think it should be.
And yeah, I mean, I don't think that he will be shut down through the air
Mhm.
because he hasn't yet. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Going to Minnesota at the Chargers should be fun.
Minnesota.
Maybe not for you.
Not for me, but it's going to be a good game for other people. I mean,
Maybe, but for others who aren't rooting for one of these two teams, it should be a fun game. Obviously, can't go talking about the Chargers without talking about Mike Williams. Feels like we talk about him all the time. I think you
yeah.
still start him, like matchup wise.
Mhm.
I think you have to. Patrick Peterson's still out. Not that that would make too big of a difference, regardless, at this point
Mhm.
and what we were seeing from him in Minnesota. Minnesota allowing the 5th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers.
Mhm.
It's just, and among those teams, they're pretty lower in touchdowns as well. So I think that you start Mike Williams. I don't know,
Mhm.
again, like that you feel amazing about it, but you're starting him over a lot of people, I would say. I want to kind of look at the names here. Jalen Waddle tonight or Mike Williams?
Mike Williams. Yeah, I said this is going to be a Mike Williams bounce back game. I think this is the chance that if you didn't listen to me early on in the season when I said get rid of him before these dismal performances of 2, 4, 3, and 7, that this could be a potential game that he can bounce back, get you double digits again, and you can try to sell him for something better than you're going to get right now. Minnesota is soft against the pass, is what it is. Peterson's out, or even softer. I think it's a good game for him, especially if Keenan Allen misses time. He did not participate in Wednesday's practice with a knee injury. I didn't get the report yet about today, so I don't know. Can't tell you tomorrow. But I think like this is the game for him to do it is against Minnesota. Like I think this is the time for him to try to do something like he was doing earlier on in the season. I like Mike Williams this week. Not like, not like loving, but a little bit loving, a little love.
Likewise, I think on the other side of the ball, kind of sets up for a good Dalvin bounce back week. There's some stuff going on with Dalvin that is way over our heads to talk about. But fantasy-wise, like, does that worry you enough that, like, you might want to trade him?
So I think Dalvin Cook he's going to have a great week this week. I said this is going to be a great Dalvin bounce back game and a great Mike Williams bounce back game. I think both these guys go out there and they prove something this week. Chargers are soft on the ground and Minnesota's soft through the air. So if you want to sell Dalvin, like if you think you can get yourself a piece that's equivalent to a Dalvin Cook, number 2 back last year, pretty good. I think you do it after this week. I don't think you do it before here, but I think you wait till he has like this nice 25, 30-point bomb of a game. And then you're like, hey, give me Jonathan Taylor for him. And I think that would be a realistic opportunity to do it. It's when he's coming back or coming off of, a nice, solid monster game like that. Especially if he can find the end zone. I think that's going to be extremely pivotal in his productivity this week is if he can find the end zone.
Yeah, and we've all mentioned plenty of times how much yards the Chargers give up on the ground, by far the most.
162.
So setting up as a big matchup for him. Anybody else that you would like to talk about in this game?
No. Pass catchers on Minnesota's side are in for a little bit of a challenge. I say it now. Jefferson and Thielen, you play them as it's Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. Just don't expect like monster games from these guys. It's going to be a tougher game, I think. As the score would predict, it's going to be a high scoring, close game.
Yeah, Chargers third in the NFL in least passing yards allowed with 197.
Mm-hmm.
I still think that this offense is going to find a way to get theirs. So I'm not, like you said, terribly worried about it, but downgrading them a little bit, meaning if you need a little bit more boom bust with how your opponent's looking, put that in your flex in comparison to a safer floor guy. If you think that you're going to need a 20-point week to beat them, if you think that it's a little bit safer, obviously go with the safer guy. That is our coverage of the 1 o'clock games and the game tonight. We will get into the other games tomorrow. On to questions. Second Take Extra made a trade yesterday. Traded DJ Moore. Panthers did get Cam today, which is pretty interesting news. We could talk about that also.
I'm surprised we didn't. I was kind of waiting. But...
Yeah, I forgot to bring that up. How do we think that affects DJ Moore and these other Panthers players?
I think it affects him a little bit. Cam is less accurate and he's more likely to run than a lot of other people. And I think especially after being cut from the Patriots, he's going to have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. And going back, probably like that. And then going back to the team that, got like he left, I think it's kind of funny. But I think it's going to kind of hurt DJ a little bit. Just not much, but I think like on a couple scrambles, he might lose it,
I think it helps DJ. Honestly, just Sam. I mean, we talk about like inaccuracy. Sam has been struggling, to say the least, over the last few weeks. I think that Cam can be accurate. I don't know that he's like the most accurate guy. I don't think we're comparing him to Aaron Rodgers here. But I think he can deliver the playmakers the ball. and help him out a little bit. I don't think it is making DJ Moore like a Deebo Samuel or something like that. But I think it could be a little bit of a consistency boost to DJ Moore. I don't think it really hurts Christian McCaffrey. It's still Christian McCaffrey. I am fine. Okay. So I guess that brings us back to the trade. Got Devonte Smith and Julio. My flex options now are Waddle, Smith, Julio, Javonte, Darrell, A-Rob. Thoughts?
Absolutely beautiful.
Really?
I mean, you got Julio, you got Smith, you got Waddle. All those guys have a chance, depending on matchups, to have a good week. Allen Robinson, I'm higher on him than you are. I think starting running back in the league is always more valuable than the backup. And like 90% of situations, I think Cordell Patterson, Kareem Hunt, I think those are the only two guys who are like backups who are better than some starters.
I mean,
like
Cordell Patterson is basically the starter now, too.
I guess so. I don't know. I don't have the stats put up for the split for them, but it's kind of flipped 50-50 back there.
I would have rather had the DJ Moore side personally, but I think your flex options are very good if we want to put a positive spin on this.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
And if you are looking at a flex for this week, I would be between Waddle and Javonte, probably. Those would be my two.
Scary.
I don't know what this means.
What is Myles Gaskin doing his thing? That's like a sentence of like a second grader, so I don't know how to answer that because it's like
I think you said that.
It says, "What is Myles Gaskin?"
I think it's back on the Jeopardy theme of
but doing
Tuesday's
his
show.
thing. Doing his thing is playing football, I guess.
I think you said that you expect Myles Gaskin. My guess would be you expected Myles Gaskin to do his thing tonight. And
play football and score. That's kind of, I guess, what you expect.
Is that his thing? His thing is to score?
He plays football and he scores points. I don't know, like, what more you want out of the guy. Kind of making this poor guy bend over backwards just to please you. It's kind of names for that kind of, but I won't get into it.
He has 4 touchdowns on the year.
More than a couple other guys on the league. More than Devontae Adams.
It's true. Scroll down a little here, trying to find some stuff. Bateman or Devonte Smith? Devonte Smith.
I like D. Smith.
He's the number one. Josh Jacobs or Ernest Johnson. Ernest Johnson, I would say. There's just no competition there. Like none.
Right.
The Second Take Extra needs to join the show one time. One time we're going to have everybody on. We're going to have the Second Take Extra. We're going to have Kenny. We're going to have maybe even Rendon can show up.
I think we should invite Rendon. I think we should invite Jar up there, whatever that name is. I probably mispronounced it. Jair up there, maybe. I don't know. Jair up there. I think we should invite him. Everyone's a shot.
Yeah, everyone's invited. Start one Waddle, Devonte Smith, A-Rob, Javonte, Darrell Williams, Julio. We kind of talked about this already. I want to look at the Javonte matchup because I need to refresh myself. They play Philly this week, which is interesting. I'm still going to go Waddle, though.
That's interesting. I mean, I'm
safest.
I don't know if I will. I kind of like Williams this week. I don't hate A-Rob. You kind of don't like him for some reason. Kind of weird, but
well, I mean, he hasn't. How many double-digit weeks does Allen Robinson put up?
I mean, probably not too many, but like I think he has a chance. I always like to root for positivity.
He's also on bye this week, so it's a tough call.
I'm looking at a different Robinson. My bad. I'm looking at James Robinson.
That is a different one.
I was like, James Robinson has definitely had double-digit weeks this week.
I don't hate James Robinson.
I like James Robinson.
I don't mind him. I mean, I think he's like an RB Like a back end RB1, RB2.
Yeah, I'd probably go Williams, though, just because I think Kansas City, they have to figure it out. Like, they have to. There's no chance, like,
We'll see.
hey, who knows? They could get Odell. That's the trade rumor going around. Or waiver rumor, I guess.
Asking for another friend. I think this kid's just bragging about the amount of friends he has, which
Yeah, I mean,
if I had a lot of friends, I would probably brag too. So
I think I have 2
wanna be that.
friends. Yeah, so that's
Do I trade Pittman for Tannehill and Pat Freiermuth? No.
no. That's terrible. Why would you do such a thing?
This one's quite the accusation. You may want to lawyer up.
Toady. So the question is, Toady.
It's not a question. It is an accusation.
Toady heard you were the one who stole Young Ho's cleats and his Jeep. Wasn't me.
You also said that.
Right.
Just want to say, Toady's been pretty honest upon the crimes that he's been alleged to commit.
Exactly.
Because he did say that he wasn't the Zodiac Killer, and it was confirmed that he is not the Zodiac Killer.
Exactly.
The Zodiac Killer is not a Vikings fan.
Yeah, I was actually sitting in a box in Times Square during the time of that crime. So you can fact check if you want.
I think it was in the when was it? 6?
It was like 1804.
Don't think
it was a cardboard. It was a cardboard box, not like a.
Bateman or Devonte Smith? Did we answer? No.
No,
Devonte Smith.
D. Smith.
Colts kicker or Chargers kicker? Colts
are playing the
Jags. Chargers are playing Minnesota. That's a tough one. I like Chargers kicker. I just trust the money badger. He hasn't missed yet as a Colt. Do I win? I have Stafford, Aaron Jones, J-Rob, Hill, Jefferson, Waddle, Pitts, Broncos D, Colts kicker, and I'm playing Allen, Cook, McKissick, DK, Debo, Dan Arnold, Cole Beasley, Pittsburgh D, and Justin Tucker. It's a close one.
It's going to be close. I think you win, though.
I think so, too.
I think you have good running backs, better wide receivers. Pitts could be in for a good week.
Yes, the digital edition, Kenny. Kenny has moved up in the number 1 of the power rankings. I'm sorry, the second take extra. It's a little selfish, but
digital edition PS5.
So
I don't know what that means.
Got a call the other day.
Okay.
So first off, a little backstory. Was playing sometimes when you want to squat up. There comes every once in a while as a grown man, you have to admit to yourself it's time to squat up. And it was time to squat up. Kenny got the invite. And he's like, look what I got. It's the new Xbox. I said, oh my God. I never knew you were like a hardcore gamer. He said, I'm not. And maybe 20 minutes later said, yeah, I'm looking to get the new PlayStation. And I said, Kenny, if you are like looking to get the new PlayStation while having the new Xbox, you are either a hardcore gamer or one of the dumbest people alive, because it would make no sense to have both if you don't play video games. Like that just doesn't add up. And so he apparently, I've been trying to get a new PlayStation for a while. I follow all the Twitter accounts, try to get into all the entry things. Haven't had success. All this to say, to answer this question, yes, digital edition. But get a call the other day that says, hey, I got invited to this thing for a PlayStation. I'll get one. I'll get one for you if you pay me and pay me back. And I said, Kenny, I would kiss you on the mouth right now, but I don't think either of us want that. They only have the regular one. Do I want it? Do I want to spend fucking that much money?
I mean, probably. I mean, we did just take 2 minutes of the very valuable people's time.
Yeah, that would probably be like bad if I. Well, that call is going to have to happen after the show. When is CEH coming back? You started practicing.
He started practicing. I think he's not going to play this week. I don't think. I think he's going to start playing next week or week after. If it's a bye week, I can't remember.
Frank Gore, Deron Williams fight. I'll be honest. I don't think that I care, but it is a good question.
Frank Gore is kind of old, so is Williams, but I might go Williams just for some youth. But Frank Gore's got that meat, bro. I won't. He's a stocky man.
Gore and whatever he does. He's more terrifying to me, although I was a big New Jersey Nets fan and Deron Williams was my point guard.
Right.
I do not play 2K that much, but
I haven't played in a long time. I think it's been like 5 or 6 months, but I mean, I got a PS4, so if I ever hop on, I'll post my gamer tag on here sometime if I hop on.
Everyone like it, sub up. Yes, sir.
Amen.
And with that, we are going to end for the day. I have to get on a call and figure out if I'm going to get a PlayStation or not. So wish me luck.
I wish you all.
I wish all of you luck in the game tonight. Enjoy. Like we said earlier, thank your veterans, thank our veterans for all they have done for our country and to sacrifice for us. And we will see you all tomorrow to break down the rest of the games.
See y'all.